Am I the a-hole for telling my neighbors that I don't care for their living situation? I recently relocated to Orlando from Miami. I moved to some apartments that most would consider really nice. Not high-end or anything, but definitely nice. Miami was just too expensive, which is the reason for my move. So because I work from home and I have 2 dogs, I wanted to get a 2-bedroom apartment. One that can be an office that I can work from and one for me to sleep in. After having my office in the same room I slept in my last home while still living with my mom, it felt suffocating as if I never got to escape work. This has been much better for me mentally, and I feel like I'm actually leaving work after I close my laptop. So, I've been here about a month and recently saw a family moving in. I'm very introverted, so I didn't introduce myself or anything. The only time I really ever have contact with anyone is when someone is walking their dog at the same time I am and our pups want to say hello to each other. Very quick small talk and then we're on our way. Today as I was going back inside after walking my dogs, I saw the wife and I just gave a friendly smile. Nothing more. I decided I should throw the trash out before I clock in for the day just to get it out of the way. As I was walking back to my apartment, the wife stopped me to introduce herself. I introduced myself as well. She then asked if I lived with a girlfriend or anything. I told her no, it's just me and the pups. She gave me a strange look that I can only describe as annoyed. She asked if my apartment has 2 bedrooms. I told her yes, that there are 2 bedrooms. She asked me why I wanted 2 bedrooms when I live alone, and I explained to her the office/sleeping thing I mentioned above. Now this is the part where I may be the a-hole. She said it was really inconsiderate and rude to bigger families to take up a 2-bedroom apartment by myself. That her family of 4, husband, wife, 2 kids, have to share a 1-bedroom because people like me decide to steal the 2-bedroom apartments. I said that it sucks that you feel that way, but there's nothing I can do. And that's when she said I should trade apartments with her. I thought she was joking, so I just started laughing. Not a nervous laugh or anything. I just genuinely found her suggestion hilarious. I then said that her living situation doesn't concern me, and if she wanted a 2-bedroom apartment, she should have looked harder. She said she was going to report me to the building management, and I said that she should include reporting me to DeSantis, Florida governor, while she's at it. I went inside and left her there screaming like a crazy person. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. I think laughter was the appropriate reaction. Next time, just ignore her and her family completely. Consider getting a doorbell camera because these people are clearly unhinged. Not the a-hole. Yep, that's the plan. Just never want to interact with them again. The doorbell camera I've had for some time, so definitely keeping that motion sensitivity as high as possible. If your family of 4 is living in a 1-bedroom apartment, it's not because you are living in a place that you can't afford and it suits your needs. It is because either she and her husband cannot afford a place that suits their needs and their desires, or because she and her husband are putting their desires above their actual needs. You're not the a-hole. She is the a-hole for being judgmental and having a highly flawed so-called logic that allows her to spew such a self-centered, inconsiderate nonsense. Not the a-hole. I very much doubt there are no other 2-bed apartments in the place where you live. She should rent one of those. She's being a mooch. I'm not trying to justify her reasoning, but I'm not going to lie. There was a wait list for these apartments. I actually had to wait about 6 months from the time I applied to when I actually got keys. Maybe she was in a sink or swim situation and got whatever she felt was the quickest solution. Did she also offer to pay higher rent for your apartment? Or simply exchange the flats? Not the a-hole, by the way. We never got to that part because of me laughing at her, so I don't really have an answer for that. Thank you for your judgment. Next story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to go to a friend's 21st birthday due to allergies? I, 21 female, was invited to my friend Stacy's, fake name, birthday celebration a few days ago. She has been very excited, as she is the last in our friend group to turn 21, and has been keeping her party planning mostly secret so she can surprise us all. Turns out, she organized for a few of our friends, as well as some other friends from her college cheer team, to have a picnic at our city's botanical gardens. I'm not sure if these are global, but it's basically a large park with lots of different plants. She picked out a spot right next to the rose display as they are her favorite flowers and hold a lot of sentimentality for her. The issue is, I am quite allergic to flowers. Think hay fever, but worse. I'm not anaphylactic, but my eyes become so itchy they can swell closed. My nose runs like a leaky tap, and very rarely I can struggle to breathe. And the flower I seem to be most allergic to are roses, as the breathing issue tends to happen when I'm exposed to them. Stacy does know about my allergies and has seen me a few reactions over the years. I declined the invitation, and naturally, as 21st are usually an important celebration, she texted me asking why I couldn't come. When I told her, she became quite upset with me and said that my excuse wasn't good enough and that there must be a better reason. And when I said it was my real reason, she became even more upset. She kept insisting that I come anyways, citing that I have medication to help me, but she must have forgotten it was a nasal spray, as when I reminded her, she said that it was disgusting. And she didn't want to see that on her birthday, even though I offered to run to the toilets when I needed to use it. I tried to compromise with her and said that I'd be happy to wear a mask, as it may help lessen the severity, but she shot the idea down as it was a picnic, so I'd take it off to eat, and she didn't want a mask to be in the photos. I also said that I'd be happy to take her out for breakfast earlier in the day so we could still hang out for her birthday, but she declined as she wanted all of her friends to celebrate together. I don't want to miss her birthday, but I don't want to ruin it by being a sniffly mess and possibly having a severe reaction. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Your friend is being a drama queen. You offered her a whole range of different options to allow you to participate, but none of them are good enough. Does she want you there or not? Or does she just want drama? If OP did go, then the friend would complain about how she ruined photos with her runny nose and swollen eyes. Seems like a lose-lose situation to me. Not the a-hole. It's going to ruin the pictures anyway. If OP has a red, snotty nose and swollen shut, watery red eyes. It's still the tail end of the pandemic where I live, and I would not want to be near a maskless, sneezing, coughing, it's just allergies person right now. She is not your friend. OP, she clearly doesn't care about you or your well-being. She just cares about having the perfect photos. Don't waste your time trying to cater to someone so selfish. Not the a-hole, but you'd be the a-hole to yourself if you give in to her ridiculous demands. This. Who the hell tells someone their reason for not attending a birthday is not good enough? Let alone that reason is because the event is being held somewhere that affects your health? An allergy she is well aware of prior to picking it. She's not your friend. She had given zero consideration to your well-being. You were just there to fill in a spot in her photo op for best birthday ever. It was a nasal spray, and when I reminded her, she said that it was disgusting and she didn't want to see that. What the heck is disgusting about a nasal spray? It's not going around, I hope. Not the a-hole. You might even take all the focus from her on her birthday. If you were really petty, you should suffer the symptoms and go. Not the a-hole. It's a medicine that is a mist that you squirt into your nose. Probably something like Flonase. Stuff works like a charm for my wife, but it is kinda gross to watch, and her nose runs like a leaky faucet for a good 30 minutes after she uses it. Next story. Would I be the a-hole if I attend a wedding and my pregnancy is announced because I will not be drinking? My boyfriend, 34 male, and I, 31 female, have been dating for 12 years and just decided to start trying for a baby. We have not announced that we were trying for a baby because it will result in our families lecturing us about getting married and having a wedding. We do not want a wedding. And marriage isn't important to us. We have a family wedding to attend this weekend. Therefore, I took a pregnancy test just to double check before a weekend of heavy drinking. Well, it was positive, and we are so excited. I do not want to announce that I am pregnant until we go to the doctor or after 12 weeks. This happened so quickly, I am not sure what to do. The bride has been dreaming about her wedding day her whole life, and all the attention should be on her. I do not want to take her spotlight. This will be the first grandchild in the family, and I assume that everyone will be so excited. The problem is that I drink alcohol and get drunk at every family event. My family loves to party and we take shots together, shotgun beer together, and randomly challenge each other to chugging contests. I am fully involved in the festivities and instigate a lot of drinking. Basically, it will be very noticeable that I am not drinking and refusing shots. I am planning on pretending to drink beers by replacing it with water, but I don't think this will actually fool my family. We are staying at the hotel where the reception is taking place, therefore I cannot just say I am the designated driver. My family will notice that I am not drinking this weekend and correctly conclude that I am pregnant. I cannot imagine missing my cousin's wedding, but also could never imagine stealing the bride's spotlight with my pregnancy. I know the bride will be angry if there are rumors about my pregnancy during her wedding. My cousin will be annoyed that I made his new wife angry, but is reasonable and would not actually be mad at me. Would I be the a-hole if my pregnancy gets announced or rumored at my cousin's wedding, or should I just stay home sick? My boyfriend suggested that we should call everyone and announce that we are pregnant today. Therefore, it does not happen during her wedding. I don't think making the announcement a few days before her wedding will actually help. In addition, I am uncomfortable with this because I've only taken at-home pregnancy tests and have not been to a doctor. I do not know how far along I am. Plus, I am more terrified of the possibility of having to announce a miscarriage to the whole family. I hope I don't have a miscarriage, but it's a possibility with any pregnancy, and the chance drops significantly after 12 weeks according to the internet. You would be the a-hole. Just say you're taking a course of antibiotics and can't drink if anyone asks. This. If they get pushy, Flagyl specifically has a severe reaction with alcohol. I was told violent vomiting. That sounds like the perfect plan to me. Opie can just say, "Oh, I had this terrible stomach bug last week, and I'm no longer contagious but have to finish my course of meds and absolutely cannot drink alcohol while taking that." Agreed. I legitimately didn't drink on one of my birthdays at a bar because I had to take antibiotics. No one suspected a different reason. I went to a wedding and a bridal shower as soon as I discovered I was pregnant. For the bridal shower, I got a glass of mimosa and still cheered with my friends and pretended to drink and nobody realized anything. Then after we announced, they were like, "Wait, but you were drinking at a bridal shower." No, I wasn't. For the wedding, I ordered Sprite with cranberry and ice. It looks exactly like vodka cranberry. Someone asked me what it was, and I said vodka cranberry, and they were excited to go get a glass for them too. When someone put a drink on my hand, I would accept it, either pretend to drink or give it to my husband. Nobody noticed anything. I still partied like crazy and everybody thought I was tipsy. When I went to the dessert table and said ice cream so excitedly that my friend laughed because he thought I was super drunk. I was just pregnant and really into ice cream. Haha. My biggest tip is, don't walk around holding a bottle of water. That's what gives it away. And it's actually really fun to pretend. My husband and I had a blast knowing nobody else knew our little secret. You're on antibiotics. You have a bet going. You've started a clean eating diet. You're prepping for a blood test. And if anyone asks if you're pregnant, just say no. You would be the a-hole. A simple Google search gives you a few ideas. Don't make your cousin's wedding about you. Don't announce it beforehand. It's techie. Exactly. When I found out I was pregnant, my husband and I said we were doing a sober January. It's not that hard. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for saying my daughter won't go on these outings if she's forced to just entertain some kid? So yesterday, my wife took my daughter 7 female swimming. Wife's friend and her daughter Helen were going with them, and I guess she brought her nephew Johnny along too. My daughter loves to swim, and they were going to her favorite beach, so she was excited for days prior. She's met my wife's friend and daughter before, and is kinda indifferent to them, but she knew it involved swimming, so she was looking forward to it. When they got back, I asked if they had fun. My daughter said no. I asked why, and she said that she barely got to swim because Helen didn't want to, so she had to play on the playground with her instead. Later, I asked my wife what happened, and she said that daughter was playing more with Johnny than Helen, and Helen wanted to play on the playground instead of swim. She said it wouldn't be nice for Helen to play by herself while daughter played with Johnny and left her out. I said, "That's stupid. You went there to swim, not play on the playground. You can go to any park and play on the playground." She said, "Yeah, but Helen didn't want to swim. It was mean for daughter to be swimming with Johnny while Helen was all alone." I said, "So it was more important for Helen to have fun than our daughter?" She said, "No, but it was one swimming trip. She'll get over it. It's better for her to form a friendship with Helen than Johnny anyway. She'll see Helen more and might not ever see Johnny again." I said, "That's not the point. She's not there just to entertain some other kid. She deserves to have fun too. Or maybe she won't go next time if she's just going to be forced to do what Helen wants." Wife said I was being dramatic and sound like an A for basically saying, "Too bad, so sad, play by yourself," to a little kid that was all alone. Says that daughter needs to learn to compromise sometimes for other people. I'm seriously considering taking off next time there's a play date like this. If my daughter is just going to be forced to be Helen's entertainment, am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Sounds like Helen only has fun when she gets her way. That's how it'll be every time your daughter goes to play with Helen. By allowing this, Your daughter will not want to have playdates with Helen at all, which will create problems for your wife and her friend. It may not be a big deal now, but it could be if your wife doesn't understand what this could do to your daughter. If the daughter doesn't get to swim, as she was promised, then this was a false promise. Daughter will start to mistrust her mother. To be fair, there's nothing in this story that suggests Helen was the bad guy or that she only has fun when she gets her way. She just didn't want to swim. Opie's wife is the problem for forcing her daughter to play with her. Yeah, it's also possible that Helen was told it was a beach trip rather than a swimming trip. The adults should have done an okay, we'll do Helen's thing for half the time, and then we'll do daughter and Johnny's preference for half the time. And next time, we will communicate better about what we're planning to do during the trip. Not stay home. Your daughter deserves to have fun. That is not a compromise. Your wife told your daughter to be a doormat. This right here, OP. Your wife is teaching your daughter that other people's comfort is more important than her own. Compromise would be including both activities. Not the a-hole. Your wife is, though. Her idea of compromise is more like making your daughter a doormat so Helen didn't play alone. A good compromise would have been to play on the playground some, then go swimming. Am I the a-hole for exposing my cousin's creepy husband to my entire family? I, 22, female, met my cousin's husband, 24 female and 26 male, last July for their wedding. They live several states away, so in addition to meeting him for the first time, it was also the first time I had seen my cousin in a few years. I instantly got a bad vibe from him, and he made several comments that rubbed me the wrong way. He told me I seemed like a wild child and said he would bet I'm a bad girl at my college. Since meeting him, he has followed me on Instagram and sporadically sends me reels, which I don't open, and comments odd things on my posts like, "Looking good, cousin." He even DM'd me once, "Hey, I'll be in your state this weekend on business, lol," which I never opened either. All of this definitely creeped me out, but I don't feel like I could say anything about it because my cousin and I aren't close, and I've always felt like she looks down on me because she is a devout Christian and I'm not. Fast forward to this week, one of those fake accounts on Instagram popped up with some of my pictures asking for money for private pictures. The bio was in broken English. The pictures were poorly cropped screenshots of my 2 most recent posts, and the Cash App was a random string of numbers and letters. The account just looked very fake, and many of my friends sent it to me and reported the account. Of course, the one person who apparently fell for it was my cousin's husband. I then got a very long, nasty DM from my cousin telling me she had been very tolerant of my sinful lifestyle, whatever that means. But this time, it had gone too far. She said she didn't care that we were family, and so long as I was posing a threat to her marriage, I was no longer welcome in their lives. I calmly and politely responded that this account was not me, and that I had already reported the account to Instagram to be taken down, and I apologized for the apparent disruption to her day. She responded that she didn't believe me and said she pities me for having such low self-esteem and would keep me in her prayers. I lost it at this point. I called her stupid for falling for an account that was so obviously fake and said that her husband was such a blatant creep. It was embarrassing she even married him. I sent screenshots of the months of DMs from him that I never responded to and concluded by saying, "If your marriage is so easily threatened, get a divorce. Don't take your insecurities out on me." Shortly after, I got angry phone calls from my mom and my grandma saying my cousin made an honest mistake and that my response was cruel and unjustified. Apparently, my cousin showed everyone our messages and is humiliated by what I said. My mom is worried our relationship with that side of the family is permanently damaged, and now I may not be welcome at future family gatherings because my grandmama doesn't want the drama. I really don't feel like my response was out of line, but since no one else agrees with me, I'm not sure. So am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. And no one is saying anything about how the husband tried to get pictures of you or tried to hit you up. Not the a-hole and good riddance. I had a feeling he only told my cousin because he tried to Cash App the account and got nothing. Could be wrong though. Just say something like, "Her husband has been harassing me for months." I didn't tell anyone except her. She's the one spreading it around. I'm disappointed but not exactly surprised that he fell for an internet scam trying to get private photos of me. If she doesn't want to be humiliated, she should tell her husband to stop humiliating her. I will also welcome an apology from them anytime. Anyone who asks me to apologize to her condones his inappropriate behavior and will no longer have a relationship with me. Thanks. But he can't possibly be at fault or in the wrong because he is an honest, devout Christian man. He just succumbed to the evil temptations of women. But he is sorry and he asked for forgiveness. And that makes everything he did completely okay and justifiable. Now, that little harlot of an OP, she dared to have social media accounts that were scammed. See? She's the real sinful, nasty one in this scenario. Because she must be casting a temptation spell over her poor cousin's husband's eyes. And that is literally the mentality behind a cousin and her husband sort of thinking. Not the a-hole. Your cousin started the drama by being gullible and dumb, and was a total a-hole to you. She deserves to be called on it, and she will be much better off knowing what her husband is. Then she shared that her husband is a thirsty hornball and says that she's embarrassed. OP kept it between the two of them. Cousin embarrassed herself. Next story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to buy my fiancé gaming laptop for a few grand after he told me to find a real job? My fiancé, male 37 and I, female 30, have started living together 6 months ago. I own a house and he moved in with me. I run online business from home which allows me to live rather comfortably. A month after moving in, he quit his job saying how much he hated it, and that is going to try and do Twitch streaming for a living. I'm all for following your passion, so I was supportive, although surprised at the turn of events. I'm in financial position to support us both, but it felt off. Anyway, nothing happened with his Twitch channel. Sure, he's gaming all day, but hasn't bothered to even try and create an account. He just games for pleasure. It's been 7 months. I've had conversations with him suggesting he finds work, but he keeps telling me that I'm unsupportive and he needs time. He wanted us to buy a bigger house together, but I said that I'm fine with my current one, and that since he doesn't have a job, I don't want to get a mortgage and be left with paying everything. And he told me that if I found a real job, maybe I wouldn't have financial problems. We had a massive argument that night. Now, he's been hinting at needing a new gaming laptop which costs a few grand, and I've been ignoring it, so he asked outright for me to buy it for his birthday. I told him no, that my fake job doesn't cover new laptops, and he got really angry with me, telling me I'm selfish and ruining his career. Granted, I can afford it to buy it, but he really hurt me saying my business is not a real job despite me working myself off. Am I the a-hole for not buying him new laptop? You sound intelligent. Is the D that good for all that BS? Not the a-hole. Yeah, I was wondering what he brings to the relationship other than entitlement and laziness. OP, not the a-hole. He's taking advantage of you. Yeah, somehow running an online business that provides for the both of them isn't a real job, but starting a gaming career when you're pushing 40 is totally viable. Not the a-hole, but curious as to why you are referring to him as your fiancé and not your ex. It felt off because it is. He showed you exactly who he is. Please believe him and move on. And instead of him worrying about what's in your pockets, he needs to be worried about the fact that nothing is in his. A partner makes deposits, not constant withdrawals. Cut the cord. Not the a-hole. Wow. So he saw you make money with your own business and decided you can be his sugar mama while he follows his dream of being a professional gamer. Yeah, you know what? No. You have a real job. He has no job. And now he's going through some early midlife crisis trying to be some edgy famous gamer. Sorry, but he sounds like he's 19. He'll be 40 soon. He needs a real job, not you. He's not even trying to be a professional gamer. If he doesn't have a streaming account, all he's doing is just gaming. He's being a professional slob. He's being a leech is what he's being. Why do smart women buy this crap? I'll never understand. Pull your weight or GTFO. I'm not your mother/ATM. Sunk costs. They're engaged and sounds like they were before he moved in. Even smart people get taken advantage of, and many people get stuck on fixing things that can't be fixed because they're so far into it and don't want to throw it away, failing to see the other person already has. I'm selfish and ruining his career. LMAO. What career? Not the a-hole. I'm a straight woman, but can I be your new boyfriend? You sound like you're carrying all the weight here, and instead of being happy for you, or even feeling lucky and grateful for being able to just fool around for 7 months and have zero consequences, this dude has become spoiled. Does he do chores around the house at least, or show some form of appreciation? Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for wanting to go somewhere while my wife is almost due? Now, I fully understand how the title sounds, and I've seen posts like this from the wife's point of view. But please hear me out. My wife is really close to giving birth, and we are both super excited to welcome our baby girl into this world. However, the issue is the fact that my 92-year-old grandfather is sick and will most likely pass on in the next week or so. He has been one of the kindest, best, and coolest people I've known, and he had a huge hand in raising me, so I want to fly over there in a couple of days to say goodbye and attend his funeral. My wife feels that this isn't as important than seeing the birth of my daughter should she go into labor while I'm gone. And while I know that the birth is extremely important, but I really want to say goodbye, and this can't wait. So am I the a-hole? Edit. Some of you ask when she's due, and that isn't for around 2 weeks. What I'm thinking of doing now is to take the car this evening. It's a 5-hour drive. Say goodbye tomorrow and come home in the afternoon. I will Zoom for the funeral. Sorry, but you're the a-hole. I empathize with your situation. I just lost my grandmother and I have also given birth. Your wife needs you for support. It's not about watching the baby being born. It's about being there for your wife during a potentially deadly medical event. Given how wonderful your grandfather is, I'm sure he would understand. This she'll push a tiny human out of her. Seem like is the first on top of that. She'll be terrified, in pain, and will want a person she can trust deeply while facing a long, painful, and potentially deadly labor. I get why it's important to you, but if your grandfather is a kind person, I think he would call you mad to even think to let your wife alone. You should video call him and ask him how he feel about that and what he want. You're not the a-hole, but neither is your wife. Try to put yourself in her shoes. How would you feel if the situation was reversed? It's not an easy choice. I'm really sad that you're put in this situation, but for me, your wife should always come first. Even more when it's about the birth of your baby girl. Good luck, Opie. Sincerely. No a-holes here. Don't wait a couple of days. Fly there now. Visit him while he's still well enough to recognize you and fly right home. Don't stay for the funeral. Life is more important than death. You've got a baby coming. People will understand. And those that won't aren't worth your time. That's what I plan to do. Thanks. You need a contingency plan. Babies do come early. Baby could come now and would actually not be considered early at all. Your wife has non-zero chance of serious complications, trauma, and even death during delivery, as does your child. If she goes into labor while you are there, what is the plan for you to safely get back? No, driving as quickly as you think you safely can to 5 hours back is not a great choice. You being in a hospital after a car accident also means not being there. I do think seeing your grandfather is important, but you need to know exactly what to do if things go sideways ahead of time. And your wife needs the reassurance of what the plan is as well. I was gonna say, if the due date is 2 weeks away, then that could happen any day now, really. Know a few babies who popped up early. I feel for you, Opie. It's a hard situation, but I don't think you'd forgive yourself if something went wrong with the wife either. Update 1. Hi guys. Thanks for the support on this post. You are all right. My wife is the most important person. I took today off and started driving to my grandfather's town around 2.5 hours ago. My wife is at home with my sister-in-law and mother-in-law, and my brother-in-law and her best friend live 5 minutes away from her, so she's fine. She was really happy about this compromise and gave me her go-ahead since she knows how close I was to my grandpa. I'm at a rest stop for lunch right now, and the plan is to get there around 5 in the evening, talk to my grandfather and say goodbye to him, then drive back home and be there around 12 a.m. I was actually speaking to my wife and mother-in-law, and they said it would be really nice if my grandfather picked out my daughter's name as a sort of connection to him for her after he passes on. Thanks. Update 2. I talked to my grandfather. It was super emotional to say the least, but it seemed like he really enjoyed it, as did I. I asked him about naming my daughter, and though he refused and said it wasn't his place at first, he eventually gave us our baby girl's name, Madeline Rose, after my grandma and great-grandma respectively. I'm going back home now, but it seems like my grandpa's going to go pretty soon. I'm glad I got to say goodbye at least. Thanks. Last story. Am I the a-hole for calling an intern at my husband's work a little boy? My 32 female husband, 38 male, is high enough in the company that he works at that he has his own secretary and staff. It is common for me to show up at the office to drop stuff off or go get lunch with him. Recently, I have noticed a new intern, Jack, 22 male. I personally don't think he likes me, but that didn't bother me until today. I went to go drop off some papers for my husband today. It was supposed to be a quick in and out. I have his schedule, so I knew he wasn't in a meeting or anything. In fact, it was his hour lunch break. So I go up the secretary desk and Jack is sitting there. No big deal. I bet he was being trained or just covering for today. I tell him I have some papers to drop off that he left at home. Jack looks at me and says he can take them. I tell him I have to give them to my husband personally since they are important. He tells me no. I give him a look and says it's his lunch break. He is not busy. Jack then tells me to sit down, girl. I was shocked and asked what he said. Same thing. Sit down, girl. My temper is thin at this point, and I called him a little boy that thinks he has power since he is sitting at the front desk when he isn't even a full-time employee. He looked shocked and got all red. And then go in the back, knock on the office door, and there is my husband doing nothing. I leave and Jack wasn't looking at me. I told this story to my friend and she told me he was just doing his job and I was a jerk. So am I the a-hole? I don't want to bring it up to my husband. He can get protective at times. Info. Your wording suggests, but I want to confirm. You told the intern you are married to your husband, right? And or does the intern know that you are married with your husband and are not a stranger? Separately, is this office setting especially secure, like defense work or other civil service requiring confidentiality/security? I said that I am dropping off paperwork for my husband. Husband and I have been to the office enough time that his staff knows who I am. The security is strict, but I have a pass that allows me to get to my husband's office. It even says family member pass on it. Not day home. The intern had the audacity to tell his boss's wife to sit down, girl? He shouldn't have said that to anyone, let alone you. But you being his boss's wife just makes it way worse. You should absolutely tell your husband. If the kid gets fired, it is 100% his own fault. I don't think it does make it worse. Opie isn't any more important than anyone else, though clearly she thinks she is. But not the a-hole because he shouldn't be addressing anyone like that. I don't think it makes it worse from a morality or being a decent person standpoint. But it's definitely worse for him, if all he was worried about was his job security. Don't call your boss's wife a girl in a dismissive tone if you want to avoid getting fired. Don't call any adult woman a girl, especially in a dismissive tone, if you want to avoid being an a-hole. Not the a-hole. I am often flabbergasted at friends' crazy reactions when stories like this pop up. This kid was not just doing his job. He was being rude and condescending and is likely misogynistic. Who refers to anyone as girl? I check in with your husband, Opie, but I think you handled it perfectly. Not only was he rude and condescending, he was asking for papers that he is not allowed to handle, which is literally failing at his job. He deserves to be formally reprimanded. So lovely of Opie's friends, who don't know anything about this person's job, to assume that he was being competent while Opie was being unreasonable. Am I the a-hole for not sharing my inheritance with my cousins? So I'm 31 female. My mom passed away when I was 4. She was 26 and dad has never been in the picture, so after my mom's death, her twin brother, my uncle Jack, became my legal guardian. He passed away suddenly 2 months ago. My grandparents started a watchmaking company over 50 years ago. They ran it for over 40, retired a decade ago, and my uncle took over. When I went to live with my uncle, he just started working for the company full-time after graduating college, and instead of having a babysitter, he would take me to work if I was not in school. My uncle met Melissa when I was 10. She was very nice to me. They got married when I was 12 and had their first child a few months later. When my cousin Mark, 20, was born, things changed. She would stop packing my lunch and other stuff. I know that she's not my mom, but before, she would just look at me with a smile, but after, she would barely acknowledge my existence. They had 2 more sons. Anyways, I worked there part-time as a teen, helping around, and Uncle taught me a few things. Uncle took over the company in 2012. My grandparents gave it to him and he took it from 145 employees to almost 1,000 in 10 years. We even started a watchmaking school. I went to college, then Uncle hired me full-time as a designer. Time went on. Mark would work for like 4 hours a week and get a full week's pay, and I've heard all my cousins and my aunt talk about how watchmaking is stupid. And that is too much for something that only tells you the time. This comment is particularly ignorant, as we don't make only watches anymore, and I thought Mark paid just enough attention to know that. But it seems I was wrong, so it never seemed like they were interested in the company. Back to now. After my uncle's funeral, my aunt informed me that they were selling the company, as it's useless to them, but they were willing to let me make an offer first. I was heartbroken. I just lost my uncle and was probably going to lose my job because there was no way I could get the money. Then last week, my uncle's will was read. All the money was divided in equal parts. Among me, my cousins, and my aunt. She got as part of the house and I got the company. 100% of the company. They were furious. I now have some friends saying it's their right to be upset for not getting something they understood they were getting. Extended family calling me a thief because it was their father's company. And my cousins texting me things like, just give it to us. We're contesting the will, meeting our lawyer tomorrow, or we're going to destroy you for what you're doing. My grandparents are on my side, but I just feel like I'm being harassed by all these people. Edit? I can't fire Mark right now. If I do, it would be a huge risk. He has flexible hours written on his contract, and is salaried. And with all this drama, I am getting a lawyer to deal with this. And I don't talk to my aunt and my 2 oldest cousins. The youngest is 11. I just open their messages to take screenshot. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. They're just angry their payday was ruined. Your uncle clearly wanted his company to stay in the family. That's why he gave it to you. This is it. It's her uncle's company. No, it's a family company. Opie's grandparents were the uncle's parents. Opie literally is in the same tier of descendants as any of the cousins. The difference is, she'll keep it in the family. Opie, you're not the a-hole. Ignore the sharks. Good for the uncle for leaving his/the family legacy to someone based on merit not blood, aka direct descendant. This is usually how companies go bankrupt after the founder passed. Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. Your grandparents would have divided the company with your mom and uncle. It's at least 50% yours. You have added equity by working there, and they have all been compensated fairly with cash and housing. Sadly, you should let your cousin go if he's just there for the paycheck and not working. This is what your uncle wanted, honoring him by doing exactly what it says in the will. Your cousins will continue to be furious. They may even sue, but continue to honor your uncle even if you have to go to court. Next story. Am I the a-hole for selling my portion of the house because my sister made my wife watch her daughters? I, 28 male, and my sister, 45, co-own a house together. It was a duplex, but we ripped out the wall in the living room years ago, so now it's a one big house. She has 2 girls. My wife and I have 2 boys and 1 on the way. It's a giant house, and there's still 3 extra bedrooms left over. My sister recently has been pretty much conning my wife into taking her daughters with her everywhere. She does this very so often, honestly. She takes needing a break to the extreme, and it's always when the warm weather hits. Because my sister is really overweight, gets overheated, and can't handle her children during these times. So anyways, she's been asking my wife pretty much daily to take the girls with her every single place she goes. My wife ends up feeling cornered as she doesn't like confrontation and just gives in. And what really angered me was that this even bled into my children's first ever concert. We got tickets well in advance, and unfortunately, I ended up breaking my hip and couldn't go. So there was a ticket left over. I was destroyed over not being able to go. I was in the hospital, but my wife decided to still bring the boys. Then she calls when they got there, and I find out that my sister basically told my wife how unfair it was that there was an extra ticket that her oldest daughter could use and she didn't even ask to bring her. Needless to say, the kid ended up being taken to the concert. And by the time my wife got to the concert and called me, she was crying and completely overwhelmed and didn't even enjoy herself. My niece has ADHD and is one hell of a handful, so there was no relaxing. I got home 2 days ago and went up one side of my sister and down the other. Told her that she had to take our kids this weekend so my wife could go and relax after being conned into parenting 2 extra kids for so long and not getting a single stroke of a second to herself. My sister got angry, saying my wife could have just said no. But my sister never takes no for an answer, so this response was truly manipulative. So in turn, I told her I'm selling my portion of the house, which means she would have to sell or convert back to duplex, which they don't have the money for, because I don't want to be around her BS anymore. She's been begging and crying to us for 2 days, trying to take our kids and kissing our butts. This home has been in our family for 6 to 8 generations, so my sister doesn't want to sell, but I have to stick to this because I don't trust her. Am I the a-hole? Edited to add, well, I can appreciate people saying that this is an open-ended threat on my end and that I would be responsible for the cost of converting back to a duplex. Please understand that I've already spoken to a few lawyers about this as I thought the same thing. And no, it's not on me financially to do this because of how the co-ownership deed is written. I'm not sure the in-depth legalities, but I did speak on behalf of this issue profusely because I too thought it would be my obligation to rebuild a duplex with my intention to sell. But legally, it is not on me for whatever reason. Not the a-hole. You are all insane people for tearing down that wall in the first place, lol. Exactly. Good walls make good neighbors. Not the a-hole. I don't think a wall would stop that sister. Sister is super entitled. The wall wouldn't have even slowed her down. She'd have just dumped an OP and his family. Not a-hole. What your sister has been doing to your wife is pretty scummy. Though I'm honestly surprised that you let it get to the point where you were so fed up you decided to sell the house. Either way, she needs to take responsibility for her own children and not have the ability to corner your wife into doing it for her. Also, if the home has been in the family for generations, the former duplex may not meet the zoning codes for lot size and zone. Legally not conforming uses are permitted unless they have been abandoned for a year in most jurisdictions. It's standard language in local zoning codes, so it may not be possible to convert it from a one-family back to a duplex. From my understanding, my sister didn't take the proper measures to convert to a duplex to begin with. I was 16 when the wall was ripped out, so I'm unsure how that will affect things long-term either. I haven't gotten that in-depth with the lawyers. Next story. Am I the a-hole for bringing up the fact my brother hasn't had a steady job since he graduated 3 years ago? Today we had a little barbecue for Memorial Day at my mom's house, and my brother, who's 21, was noticeably tired and not really speaking unless spoken to. But it's kind of always been like that. It was enough to be noticeably worse today though, so I asked him how he was doing. And he said he's fine and just had a long night with his friends and PlayStation. I told him he should have probably planned to go to sleep early so he'd have energy for the barbecue today, and he sarcastically responded that he couldn't help it. I regret my response to this, but I said, maybe you'd have more energy if you had a job. His demeanor quickly shifted, and he was pretty insulted, but it's been a recurring argument between us that he needs to get off his butt and help our mom with rent, but for some reason he just doesn't. No matter how hard we poke and pet him, he won't budge. He's not in college, and the only money he makes is when he goes logging with my dad, which isn't really a job and only happens a few times a month. Eventually, he started crying and ran to his room. My mom was angry with me for ruining the barbecue, which I didn't expect to happen, and told me I should probably leave. I'm a 23 female and I've had a job ever since high school, and I'm in college currently. I moved out when I was 19 and never looked back. But for some reason, my mom isn't as strict with my brother as she was with me. She occasionally sends him links to places that are hiring, and that's it. Honestly, he's got a heart of gold and lots of friends and family who adore him. I just wished he'd get a job to help my overworked mom out. Am I the a-hole? Now for the comments before the mini update. But I said, maybe you'd have more energy if you had a job. This right here is a cheap shot and doesn't even make sense. Not to mention a drama starter. Can't blame your mom for asking you to leave. You tout that you've had a job since high school, go to school currently and live on your own. Yet here you are starting unnecessary childish drama at a family barbecue. You're the a-hole. You are taking a problem that has nothing to do with you and making it your problem. Comments like that are not going to help him. He's an adult. His job situation is his to deal with. And if he's not paying rent to your mom, that's up to your mom to sort out. I also think you are not accounting for details you may be unaware of here, like if he may be dealing with some mental health issues or other problems in his life. It sounds like resentment from the unequal treatment between Opie and her brother. That's what I was thinking. There's some golden child / scapegoat energy here, but I give her a soft Yordi a-hole because she did start drama at a family event. In your comments, you say that your brother has anxiety, depression, is on meds, and is in therapy. Clearly, he is struggling, probably more than you know, and trying to manage life the best he can as a 21-year-old. I'm not sure why you feel the need to insert yourself into any of this, to be honest. Seems kind of like you enjoy comparing yourself to him and trying to make him feel beneath you. The fact that you chose to hound him about this, something that really is none of your business, in front of others was totally out of line. You're the a-hole. You owe your brother an apology. He needs encouragement and support, not condescending lectures and scolding. The title says graduated 3 years ago, so remember that this is a kid whose final high school years were COVID years. I know this seems like an excuse, but we're really seeing serious mental health issues and an almost adult version of a newborn's failure to thrive by some of those students. His high school education and social development were very different than what OP would have experienced. He needs help and support to move on, not additional guilt. Now for the mini update. I apologized earlier today and bought him lunch. We're also gonna try family therapy and see how it goes. He also accepted my offer of trying to help him get a job at my place of work. He also told me he was thinking about upping his meds in the last few days, and yesterday's events was the straw that broke the camel's back. Everything seems to be dandy now, but I may make a post in the future if he doesn't keep his word about keeping a job at my place of work. Last story. Am I the a-hole for wanting to live with my father over my mother despite his cheating? I, 19 female, grew up with a very one-sided family dynamic. I have a great relationship with my father, and we have always gotten along with each other. He was way more present in my upbringing than my mother, and I overall just prefer being with him. He was always there for me and never prioritized his job over the family. My mother, on the other hand, was more focused on her work than being a part of my life, and that has really drawn a wedge between us. I don't hate my mom, but I don't have nearly as close of a connection with her as I have with my father. Her work was always prioritized over my father and I, and it felt like my parents weren't even married. So, my mother recently found out that my father has been having an affair with a coworker of his for the past 2 months. I had no idea about this, so this definitely came as a shock to me. They're getting a divorce, and my mother is planning on moving out of our house soon. And my mother told me that I should start packing my stuff so that we can move out as soon as she can sign a lease in an apartment. But to be honest, I don't really want to move out with her, and I'd much rather stay with my father. I know what he did was terrible, but I still wouldn't really feel at home or comfortable living alone with my mom. I know that if I live with my father, he'll continue to support and take care of me like he has been doing, unlike my mother. When I told my mother that I wanted to live with my father, she had a mental breakdown. She started telling me that her father broke up our family, and that he broke her, and that me choosing him over her is a massive betrayal from me towards her. My mother got really emotional, and I felt bad about this all. Am I the a-hole? If the dad was earning less than your mother in this time period, it makes sense that your mother was more career-focused to manage the house expenses. While this doesn't mean the family can be neglected, it also hints that maybe your father was having affairs for a long time and chose to remain distant from the mother, which further drove her away to focus on work. He was only caught this time. No reason to think he wasn't cheating before. Do you know for sure that your mom wasn't significantly earning more, or rather that your father brought home lesser income? During your childhood, not current situation. My father earned more than my mother and took care of the majority of the bills at home. He was a hard worker, but always made sure that he had time for the family and never let his career come between us. And because my father did so much for the family, my mother was rarely present and was always focused on her career and put us on the back burner, which made us feel neglected. We always expressed to her how we felt, but she never listened. Do you feel him cheating on your mom was justified then? It just sounds like you're okay with everything that happened. Have you ever had a proper sit-down with your mom about everything that happened? Has your father apologized or showed remorse at all? Was he willing to work through this? Don't get me wrong. I think what my dad did was completely wrong and terrible. He should have been more upfront about all of this and opted for separation/divorce before getting involved with another woman. I'm really not sure what has happened between my parents specifically, but my father made it clear that my mother and him getting a divorce changes nothing about his relationship with me. Not a-hole. Your father did not cheat on you. And while affair/cheating can be very hurtful and disruptive for a family dynamic, infidelity is never a simple thing. While the act itself seems simple, what brought him to that act can be anything from drunken impulse to years of neglect, distance, and loneliness. What I try to say is, you currently have a hurt, angry mother and a defensive, guilty father. Neither one of them will give you a precise and correct testimony about what happened. Choose your own path. Huh? Father chose sex instead of having a divorce. Doesn't matter if it was neglect. He is an adult man who could divorce his wife anytime he wanted, but instead choose to break his wedding vows. To me, it seems like a character flaw. That viewpoint doesn't really help OP make the decision, and as the commenter above you pointed out, nobody has the full picture of what has happened in the parents' marriage. Not even OP.